I was hooked. At that moment, I wanted to feed as many people as I could. I wanted to grow as much food as I could. I had this idea of, well, what other crops could you just throw on the ground and not do anything, not water, not do anything with them? And would they grow and feed people 2 generations from now?
Welcome to the Sustainable Living Podcast. Tips, tools, and tactics for living a heart-centered life that honors Mother Earth and her inhabitants. The information shared on the Sustainable Living Podcast reflects the opinions of host Marian West, Janice Fryatt, and their guests. Please use your own discretion and research before applying any information to your individual situation. Now, here are your hosts, Marian and Janice.
Today's guest is one of our listeners. I must say it is one of my favorite things to connect with you guys. You know, it's a lot of fun to sit here with a microphone and recording software and to think about topics and learn about tech and all of that. But what's really great is to connect with you guys. Yeah, you on the other end of this adventure called a podcast. Without you, we don't have a podcast. We would just be talking into thin air, right? And it really blows me away how many of you do amazing things out in the world. It's such an honor to get to know you and such an honor to be in your ears every week, hopefully. So today's guest is one of our listeners, and his name is Carl Stanley. Carl is a true change maker. He shows up really big in the world, and he teaches people how to become free. By free, one of the first things he teaches is to be free of your monthly bills, which then gives you the freedom to do the work you really love to do instead of having to do work to bring home the dollar to pay the electricity and to do all of that. So Carl is the founder of Manabu Farms, and he has a lot of teachings on YouTube and a blog and more. To check him out after you listen to the interview. We are touching on a lot of great life hacks, and I really hope you enjoy. Here is Carl. Hello, everyone. This is Marianne, and welcome, Carl, to the podcast.
Thank you.
Carl, we have so many things we could talk about. I'm so fascinated with, all the different things you're doing in the world. And I thought, since it's so much, let's start in the beginning. I would like to know, how did you get inspired to get so community oriented and money saving and self-sufficient oriented?
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a good question. I learned a lot from my grandparents, but I wouldn't say they actually installed that into me. Of like all children, I kind of rebelled against it and then went back to it later in life. It really started when I was in a bad part of my life. I was borderline homeless. We were staying at a cockroach-infested, drug-dealing motel. And there was me, my wife, my sister, and my sister's boyfriend all putting our finances together to try to just survive in this little motel. And we weren't doing very good. None of us had a job or anything like that at the moment. We were in between transitions. And we were going to have fried bologna for the second time in a row. And this night we didn't have any rice or anything. We had a little hot plate, and we were just going to fry up some bologna and eat this fried bologna. And I wanted something to go with it, so I stepped outside of my place to see if there was a neighbor who would smile at me that I could walk over and go, hey, can I borrow some bread till we got paid? And instead of seeing a neighbor, what happened was the wind blew, and it blew just right to give me that odor of onion on the air. And I kind of sniffed and tracked it down to the edge of the motel where somebody years ago must have thrown some pearl onions on the ground from a sandwich or something they were eating, and those sprouted up. And there was this patch of now wild pearl onions growing there. And I took a bunch of them in, fried them up with the stuff, and that was really my first adult experience with fresh from the garden flavor and taste. And I was hooked. At that moment, I wanted to feed as many people as I could. I wanted to grow as much food as I could. I had this idea of, well, what other crops could you just throw in the ground and not do anything, not water, not do anything with them? And would they grow and feed people 2 generations from now? And so I started a little plot and started growing. And from there, it just expanded to, we got into a place. And when we got into a place in California, rent was extremely high. Bills were extremely high. So I kept growing more and more food to save money. And somebody said, wow, you've really hacked the food bill. Like a computer hacker hacks a computer. And that kind of got me thinking of what other bills could we hack? What other bills could we eliminate? You know, and so slowly but surely we eliminated each one of our bills. In about a 6-year period, I lived in a house that originally cost us $5,300 a month in bills, and that didn't include food.
Wow.
6 years of installing new technologies and trying new techniques, we brought it down to $75 a month.
Wow, that's impressive. That is a huge difference.
And so I was so amazed by this that I thought I had something, but I wanted to make sure it worked for other people. So we took other friends in our neighborhoods and things like that, and we started installing the same technologies and the same systems in their houses. And I'm happy to say that it worked for 19 other families so far, have become self-sufficient and taken back their financial freedoms and been freed from their monthly bills.
That is amazing. So you said this is in California. Is it Southern or Northern California?
Northern California, up in the Humboldt area.
Okay. So do you get natural rains there, or do you have to supplement water?
There we got a lot of natural rain. Humboldt County is actually known as the only American rainforest. Not a tropical rainforest, but it's a rainforest nonetheless because of the beautiful redwoods. Of the perfect growing season. I mean, there I could pull out fresh tomatoes in December off my vine, you know. That's
nice.
Kind of one of the reasons why I am where I am now is a lot of people in Canada and colder climates said that my methods wouldn't work for them. And so part of the reason, I mean, a very small part, but part of the reason why we're now located in Flint, Michigan is because we wanted a climate that did have snow to prove to people that the system would still work there.
Wow, you're in Flint, Michigan right now? I didn't know that.
Yes, I'm in Flint, Michigan. We moved up here to help people with the water crisis because part of what we do is we show people how to collect rainwater and also use water condensing units to generate water out of the air themselves so that they never have to rely on a city water supply again. And with the poisoned water here, that was important to us.
Yeah, so you moved there after the whole water fiasco happened there?
That's right. We moved here knowing how bad it was. We knew how bad the crime rate was, how bad the area was. We came up here to save Flint. We really believe that if people don't have to pay their monthly bills and they're not struggling, then that will lessen crime, that will lessen drug addiction, that will lessen everything. Everything becomes better once you're self-sufficient, once you're no longer a consumer, but a producer.
Wow. You just went even another notch up in my my respect for you. I had been, following you for a while. We actually originally connected in our Facebook group, the Sustainable Living Podcast, Tips, Tools, and Tactics. And Carl would come in and give all this really great tips on sustainability and all of that. Carl has a YouTube channel. I hope I'm not butchering the name. Manapa Farm or Manupa Farm? How do you pronounce it?
Man-a-boo.
Oh, yeah, I totally said it wrong. Man-a-boo.
While we're on that real quick, man-a-boo is Japanese for the art of learning. So we're the art of learning how to farm again.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, so definitely check out that YouTube channel. But yeah, I didn't know you moved to Flint after the water crisis.
Correct, yeah.
Wow. Thank you. How you show up in the world. I'm so impressed.
Well, thank you.
I wanted to come back to that one onion, bringing you into this whole change of your life and your lifestyle. It's amazing how the smallest things can sometimes make a difference, huh?
It really is. And to honor that onion, I made sure to get seed from those plants and have kept that same strand, that same wild strand that was growing there at my farm since that day to remind me always of that onion that brought me into this.
Very cool. Wow. I mean, there's so much we could talk about right now. Can we talk a little bit more about how you got rid of your bills?
Sure. The first bill that I suggest people tackle, usually, now a lot of people who are needing my advice are already on food stamps, so we do a different plan if you've got your food bill kind of handled by that EPT situation. But if you don't, the first thing I suggest is gardening. You lower your food bill. When you can raise your own livestock, if that's what you're into, or grow your own food and lessen the amount you spend on that, and really track that. You got to first spend a couple months tracking how much money you spend on food a month, every candy bar, everything. And once you have that average of how much you spend every month, then you invest in your gardening. And it's not hard to do gardening. I've got a lot of tips out there on how to do everything for free, how to get your soil for free, how to get your seeds for free, how to do your boxes, your raised beds for free, everything.
Can I throw some in, Sarah? I watched one of your videos and you repurpose a wheelbarrow to make a planting bed out of it. And I happen to have one laying around. So I had been looking for a spot for my strawberries and I put them in there. And people now admire it. So thank you so much for that.
You should also look at the one on what we did on Coke bottles, how to use Coke bottles. Or now we're up here because we have a free source from one of the local bars here. We're using wine bottles, but you can use any bottle and turn the neck down and bury it into the ground and build a border wall for your garden box. And it looks really beautiful. And what's really neat is you can plant flower seeds inside the bottle and they will sprout up in the bottle.
So you put them upside down or you put them right side up?
You put them upside down. The opening gets buried in the ground.
Okay. And then where do you put the flower?
Inside the bottle. It will sprout the flowers. And we use, just ornamental flowers in the bottle. And then inside the box is where all your edibles is growing.
Oh, wow. What a great idea. I love it. Do you have any pictures you can send us?
You can see the pictures on our YouTube channel from the Coke bottle garden box, but we're currently putting in this week a wine bottle one, and I will be taking photos of it all, and I'll send them to you.
Wonderful. Great idea. Love it. Okay, so food bill would be first. And you're saying people are being covered by EBT, and those services can go away fast. Just saying.
Especially with our current political situation, there may be it lowering or even vanishing completely. My point is, once you have the money that you're going to, you would normally spend, let's say you spend $200. I know that's just a random number I threw out there, in food a month, and you start growing your garden, and you notice that now you've knocked it down to $180 even, just that little bit, right? $20 you knocked off in the first couple of months. That money, that $20 you would normally spend, you put aside, and you invest that in the next bill lowering. That way you now have made a little bit of wiggle room in your budget, and you're able to start buying things that are necessary eventually to completely eliminate the bills. First, you lower the bills, and the money that you save, you invest into eliminating the bills. You see how that works? So you never have to spend more than you're already spending now.
Give me an idea. How can you get rid of your electric
bill? Okay, well, there's a lot of the normal 20 top tips that everybody else has already given you, change your to LED light bulbs and put your thermostat on a timer and these type of things like that. There's a few out there that are really useful. I find more than just lowering your bill, it actually gives you or your family a benefit too. And my top tip that's not normally told, I would say, is once a day, we turn off our power at the circuit breaker to the whole house for 2 hours. And we go out and we spend family time together, away from all electronics. Now, sometimes if we want to watch a movie during that 2 hours, we'll charge a laptop. We'll put a movie on the laptop and we'll watch it during that 2 hours. But during that 2 hours, everything in our house is shut off. And that really lowers your bill, because it's like if you take 2 hours for 30 days, that's 60 hours. You know what I mean? That has been, your house wasn't used in power.
So you're saying in 2 hours, your refrigeration and your freezer and all of those things are not going to be affected because they are still cold enough, right?
Your refrigerator, I'm actually food safe served. I'm a hospital trained chef assistant chef. And you have to have everything at 41 degrees or higher. And we've got an outside thermostat on our fridge that has a little sensor inside that runs on a battery so that we know that it never drops below 41. And I've done it as much as 5 hours and still not had my refrigerator drop. And we've opened the refrigerator a few times during that to grab drinks and things like that out of it, and it still didn't drop below 41. And that's in the heat of summer. So that box is really insulated and really meant to keep it cold, even without the power running to it.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Now, there are a few tips to help you with that as well. A refrigerator works best and more energy efficient, and same with your freezer, when they're full. So here's one a lot of people don't tell you is take bottles of water, like 2 liters and milk jugs, and fill them with water and put them in your freezer and make them create ice. Then put them into your refrigerator and to fill up empty space. That will keep, when your power's off, everything even more colder. And also it makes the refrigerator, when the power is on, run more efficient, which means you save money.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Mine is always full, so I don't. Well, I live in Southern California and we have bug problems. So put a lot of things in the refrigerator, like raisins and stuff like that. Other people probably wouldn't keep in the refrigerator.
Necessity is the mother of invention. So therefore, you've already filled your fridge perfectly because you needed to.
Exactly. And what would be your steps to completely get rid of that, Bill?
Okay, to completely get rid of that, you're going to need to install, we do solar power. We do wind power, because when the sun isn't shining, usually the wind is blowing. So you want to have both. A lot of people say, oh, I just need my solar panels. And you don't. You really need a combination of both solar and wind. We also teach kinetic energy, how to create electricity through your movement. And there's plenty of devices out there that help you lower your power use by using your kinetic energy that you would already be using. Such as, has you heard of the device called Ampy?
No, I haven't.
Ampy is a small wearable you can put on you that, or your kids or your dogs. That's how we use it, because they've got endless energy. And the more you move during the day, the more electricity that little device creates that then you can charge any USB device. So therefore, you're not taking that from your walls, but from your own kinetic energy that you create during the day.
Very cool.
What's really important to get into is biogas. And if you're not going to be the DIY type of guy like myself, and you need to spend a little money, I highly recommend, and they don't pay me for this recommendation, I highly recommend home biogas. They have a small greenhouse about the size of a couch that you can install in your backyard that the average family of 4 will create 4 to 6 hours of biogas cooking energy for their house, or heating energy, a day off of their normal table scraps and things you waste. You can even throw your cat litter in there. And it just basically is an artificial cow's stomach that therefore creates methane CH4 so that you can power your normal devices that you would normally do, like your gas stove or your water heater, things like that. So when installing those 5 devices, those 5 technologies, you can completely not only eliminate your power bill, but if you go so far, you can eventually start sending power back onto the grid and start creating an income off of your excess power.
Right now, that's getting more difficult in Southern California too, because they want to charge people with solar extra charges for using the grid.
And what's worst about that is the states that have the best solar sunlight are the states with the worst rules and laws on the books. Like Florida just made it almost impossible to make it worth doing solar power.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Now, you said in your house you got down to like $75. So what was the leftover? What bill were you not able to get rid of?
That $75 would now have been eliminated, because back then there was no such thing as a free government phone. And that $75 was for our cell phones that we just didn't want to give up on.
Oh, okay. How can you not be on the Sosua system if you're in a city?
Okay. Most of the time, you still have to be connected by law, and you still have to pay a minimal fee. Okay? And the way we say that we've eliminated that bill is by having our household have an income that it makes itself without us, a passive income that we don't do, that covers small, tiny bills like that. But to eliminate yourself, you can eliminate your need for it. And the first way you do that is, of course, by collecting rainwater and gathering snow and things like that. And those systems are pretty well known. But the next really big one that I highly recommend people looking into is what's called incinerating toilets. They've been used for years on ships and boats, and they're basically a propane-based toilet that incinerates all the waste. Now, everybody loves the eco-friendly composting toilet, but I've done that, and I'm just, personally, I don't like dealing with the human manure. You know what I mean? The incinerating toilet is an option for those people who just can't bring themselves to want to dump that human manure and make human compost.
Right.
Because what it does is creates a small amount of ash and never uses toilet water at all.
And can those be installed in a regular bathroom?
Right. It drops down below the toilet. It burns it up into a small ash. And for my family, we had to drain that little tank, the little ash tank, which is just a black ash, has no smell. And we had to drain it about once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks sometimes if, you didn't have that much company.
I know that dealing with the human manure is a big drawback for most people. I'm here in San Diego, and we have sewer spills going into the ocean all the time. So it's definitely a conversation. How can we put less stuff into the system? But still, even very eco-conscious people a lot of times don't want to wrap their mind around the human manure toilet,
Dealing with the human manure composting toilets is no worse than changing a kid's diaper. And I said that for years. And then I came up with the concept in my head of realizing, but my kid grows out of diapers. My toilet doesn't. You know what I mean? I'm going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life. And I just didn't want to have to deal with that issue for the rest of my life. So the incinerating toilets is the way to go, in my opinion.
Interesting.
On a smaller scale note, one of the big ones you can do is you can fill a water jug, a small 1-gallon water jug, with sand or dirt, or even use bricks, and you place these in the back of your toilet tank, and it displaces the water. So instead of using around 2 gallons of water every time you flush, you're only using 1, which does help lower your bill.
Right. A friend of mine would have a bucket underneath her sink, and she disconnected the sink from going out into the sewer. So also hand washing water would go in the bucket, and then that would be used to flush the toilet or water plants.
We have the same system just in our kitchen sink. So all our dishwater goes through a filter and then gets used currently because we can't afford the incinerating toilet yet because we just started a new property up here in Flint. We're trying to do everything on a very, very limited budget so that when we're videotaping it, so that when we're done and we can release a little documentary type thing of showing people how on almost no budget at all you can create this by using your community coming together and working together.
Yeah, so you're teaching by example.
Exactly. I can teach everything to everybody, but if I don't have an example that they can go look at and see, then they're not going to necessarily believe it as well as if they would have seen it. An image is worth 1,000 words.
For sure. And I think a lot of times people teach things which the students, so to speak, cannot necessarily relate to. I think a lot of people have this thing going through their mind, well, this person had all of those circumstances, that's why they could do it, but I can't. But you're like a living proof of not having had a huge amount of money resources to make this happen. So your teaching probably speaks louder.
I mean, even when we did run a pretty nice business in California through the farm and things like that, we still did managed our garden, our personal gardens, on $100 or less. And some people said, wow, I couldn't imagine paying $100 or less or $100 for my garden. I'm like, well, that also included all our bills. You know what I mean? There was nothing. When you add it all up together, if we're making a profit of $300 or $400 a month and we're only paying out $100, we're making $300.
Right. Which brings me to I'm very fascinated in, and you talk about that a lot, which is community businesses. And you were saying that you were involved in some of them where you made up to like $1,000 a month. So can you tell me a little bit what kind of businesses you were running or what you participated in?
Our main one was we called it a transformation business, where what we did is we went to people's houses who were already paying someone to come and landscape weekly or monthly and mow their lawns and do things like that. And we would offer them a discount lower than what they're currently paying to do the exact same thing, but instead of just mowing their lawn, we would come and install garden boxes we would plant food, and we would give them either a share of the crop, or we would give them the opportunity of selling their share at the farmer's market where we sold it, and we would pay them, and they could eventually, a lot of our customers went from customers to members of our collective, where it used to be they paid us every month to come deal with their lawn, but eventually we were growing so much money that paid for us coming to deal with their gardens and gave them money.
Nice. So you were selling proceeds from your own or products from your own farm at a farmer's market and basically expanded that in collectively farming a whole bunch of different yards.
Correct. As many yards as people we could get to sign on. And at one point in time, we had a very large portion of our city with small front yard or backyard farms that didn't produce that much themselves, but when you collectively put them all together, we were pulling in a very large income.
Nice. And did people have to go through training to participate, or how does it work? You know, because a lot of times not everybody comes in with the same skill set. And so one person who has math skills around a given subject, what they can do in 1 hour is much different from somebody who has no clue. So how were you working around those kind of discrepancies? Whatever said word is.
We worked around it by having our net or close unit, our main unit of employees who maintained all the sites, did all the work, and were paid for their services. And then slowly the homeowners became knowledgeable by watching and by participating with those people who came to their property and could eventually maintain it themselves. So over time, they became just as qualified as our own employees and could run the gardens themselves. And then we stopped taking a share, and they would have their complete crops. They would put in their own crops. They would handle them. They would maintain them, and we would take a commission off the sales. So at first, we took the lion's share of the profit because we were maintaining it and educating them on how to maintain it. And then over time, that share changed to where they had the lion's share because they were doing the work and we were just doing the sales.
And then who was the we? Was it a group of people which had started out with you, transforming their own homes?
Brings us to a whole nother kind of topic. As you said, we've got so many little topics we could talk about, and that brings us to the difference between Manabu Farms and Manabu Farms Club.
Okay.
During that whole process, after the whole onion thing, I spent some time up on a mountain, and I was doing a Native American vision quest. And during that time, I was aware of such facts as, the average age of the American farmer is 65 years old, and that over the next 10 years, we're going to lose 60% of our farmers just to natural causes of death. And that over the last 10 years, more and more farms have been shutting down because their next generation of children won't maintain them and sell them off. And that brought me to this realization up there on the mountain that kids don't want to be farmers these days. They want to be rock stars and YouTube stars and things like that are cool. And so I don't know if you're familiar with a vision quest or not, but I'm up on this mountain for 4 days with no food, no water. And so my mind's just, no one's contact with other outside beings, and my mind's just kind of racing, and I'm going through thoughts. And I think about the fact that, well, what is cool and how cool changes from a boy to a girl, from when you're 6 years old, little dinosaurs are cool, to when you're 18, motorcycles are cool or whatever, and how cool is a very different thing for different people. And it was about that moment while I was sitting there on the mountaintop that way down in the valley far away, I heard the distinct sound of a Harley motorcycle driving through the valley. And it got me off track thinking about how bikers of today are the same as the cowboys of Old West. And then it kind of made me think about how outlaws, no matter who you are or what social standing you're in, outlaws have always kind of been cool. Whether it was the dime novels of the Old West times writing about Billy the Kid, or whether you're looking at things like Sons of Anarchy nowadays, and Ocean's 11. People always like to fantasize about being an outlaw.
Right.
And that's when I realized, well, how many people are being arrested for gardens in their front lawns? And how many people are being arrested for rainwater collection? and composting and fined for these things. And basically, I realized that the city and the states were already making urban farming done right outlawed. They were kind of outlawing these activities and these people. And that if I could embrace that activity and call myself an outlaw farmer and embrace that, perhaps I could get the youth to start embracing it too. And so Manabu Farms Club is a outlaw farm club that basically would do things like we have at one point in time gone and planted over 3,000 radishes on the police department lawn. We have in front of the local community college there where they paid outrageous prices for horrible food. We went and planted strawberries and sweet peas and things you could pick right off the vine and eat instead of going into their cafeterias. We, at one point in time, we went into Mcdonald's parking lot in the 2 hours they were closed down, ripped out all their ornamental bushes and put in edibles. And we did other things besides that. But the main point of what we did is we took kids who were in gangs or on the verge of gangs and gave them that family atmosphere, that atmosphere of we farm together, we stand together, and showed them that they could make profit off of food instead of drugs, and that the farm club could be their family that they were looking for in gangs.
Wow, that's powerful.
Those were the people who were maintaining these farms, these yard farms. They were ex-gangbangers and ex-prison members who had now turned over a new leaf and were part of a farm club and a farm family.
That is so amazing. Healing power of plants.
That's right.
Huh? Yeah.
You know, as Will Allen says, we touch God when we put our hands in the soil.
Yep, absolutely. It's being connected. So just out of curiosity, how did the Mcdonald takeover turn out?
It went really great, and it actually was one of our almost viral videos. We didn't put it out in our own name because in fear of the cops at the time. It's been years now, so I don't worry about it, but the video went very viral of us coming in on roller skates and bicycles and things, and in about 20 minutes completely taking out their two little strips that they had of bushes and putting in blueberry bushes and other carrots and other things. And it made it on the news that day, the next day and things. It was cute.
And did they keep it edible, or did they revert it to ornamentals?
They decided that until the ornamentals would die off, they would keep it, but any things that weren't permanent, like the carrots we had planted, once those were harvested, they put other grass and other things back in. But the blueberry bush and a few other things that were permanent that would come back every year are still there.
Cool. So you did make like a lasting difference.
A lasting impact.
Yeah. Interesting. Good. I mean, I'm not going to promote for people to go and rip out others' stuff, you know, but...
Of course not. No. That was the young club that we were. We've evolved past such activities nowadays. We now do enough with people's private yards that we don't feel it's our job to do these political, almost publicity stunts to try to raise people's awareness that food needs to be grown. Because we're on a war on hunger. I mean, there are people starving here in America and every single country, and yet there is tons of land within the cities that is not being used for food. And instead, we're wasting all this money in gas and all this money in transportation and freezing and serving lower quality food because we're transporting it further than if our cities would take back their own food independence and grow their own.
Yeah, I think there's quite a movement out there, and we see how that all plays out. There's so many different forces involved in that. Money interests and, well, you know what's all involved, and said it's not as straightforward and easy as we might think. Because like you said, people have been getting fined for growing food in their front yard, or, you know, we even have the self-policing homeowners associations, which don't allow anything. So, yeah.
Well, to those type of situations and those obstacles within our path to freedom, all I have to say is look at the greats from the past, like Martin Luther King, who said that, I'm going to misquote him here. I apologize. I can't get it exactly right in my head right now. But the point of it was that to break an unjust law willingly and knowingly and accept the punishment is the highest expression of the law. I think I actually got that pretty close.
But yeah, it does make a lot of sense. I mean, that's how change has come about, that people were standing up against unjust laws. And that's definitely part of, I think, the sustainability movement.
Anything that stops you from being free and for me, the definition of freedom is to be able to wake up in the morning and do what I want within reason without fear of I'm not going to be able to pay a bill. I'm not going to be able to, if you get up in the morning and you're going to a job you love, then you're free. But if you get up in the morning and you're going to a job that you're working at just because you have to pay bills, you're not free. You're a financial slave.
Yes.
And so that's why our 5 key points in the school, the Manabu school that we teach, the first one is improving your mindset, improving your knowing that you're not free and knowing what freedom looks like for you, because it's different for every person. It's not some universal term, And then that's our first big chapter that we cover. And then the second thing we go into is how to create your own food, how to grow your own food and take back your food freedom. Then we go into how to create your own water and gather your own water and take back your water freedom. Then we go into how to create your own power and create your own electricity and your own gas at home. And then the last final step, once you're free from all these bills, is how to take the skills and the talents and the things you love and turn them into a home-based business that's for profit, something that you can do in your spare time or in the amount of time you want to dedicate it to it. And that makes you your entertainment money and your play money, because you don't have any other need for money. All your other monies are met with your bill. Your bills are all paid for.
So in Southern California, at least, just rent or house payments are tremendous. So what do you suggest to get rid of that bill?
Okay. That one's one of those reverse get rid ofs. I call it a reverse get rid of, because a lot of times for a long period of time, you're not going to be able to get rid of it. What you're going to be able to do is find a way to have your house make an income itself that pays that bill. So as an example, I pay $268. I know that's going to sound ridiculously small from California, but
right.
I $200 because I was so blown away when I got here from paying $2,200 a month for a 4-bedroom house in Humboldt County, California,
right,
for paying $260 for a 4-bedroom house in Flint, Michigan.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So the first suggestion is, if you can, and you're not already got a great community and great friends in your area, move to a dying city. Because a dying city, their rents are dirt cheap, and you can build up fast and build up an income and go back to the town you wanted to be in if you want to. But I'll give you an example. Right now in my living room, I have a small shelving space that I'll be doing a video on here that you can look on our blog, Manabu Farms blogspot, in a few weeks. And you'll see how I am making cilantro microgreens in my living room. It takes me very little time at all. I spray down the plants once a day. I make a new tray once a day, so that takes me about 5 minutes of time. And I'm going to be making about $400 a month off of that small space by selling it to a local Mexican restaurant. So my living room is pulling in $400, and my whole house is only costing me $268 a month. I've eliminated my rent bill.
Yeah.
It's a reverse elimination. The bill's still there, but my house is paying for it. I'm often saying you wouldn't let some guy sleep on your couch without producing something in your house, even doing your dishes or doing something in your house. Why are you letting your house just sit there doing nothing?
Good point. So that needs a little bit of thinking. So this could be a whole show of what can we do to make our house pay for us.
And I've got about 20 beautiful small business plans that make great money that I'm happy to share with any of your listeners. Everything from how you can turn collecting leaves and animal manure from the local area and turning it into fresh, beautiful potting soil that you can sell back to the farm stores, to how to collect bottles that aren't being recycled and turn those into replasticated goods for free. There's a wonderful systems for all of this and plenty others that can take anything you can know how to do. I mean, I'm sure the advertisements from this podcast aren't making you rich, but they're giving you a little bit of income. You know what I mean? So even doing podcasts and doing YouTube and doing blogs and things like that is another way that I show and teach how to make a small passive income off of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually don't make any money yet off the podcast, but we got our first sponsor, so to speak, the other day by I interviewed a lady who does shampoo and body wash and conditioner in refillable bottles, and she sent us her product, and so we are very happy about that.
Oh, right. But I might be making that money, but I've never got a sponsor yet, so you're doing great.
Sponsoring products, and we are, very happy about that.
That's a good product to sponsor, That's like the Ampy. I don't make any money off of talking about Ampy, but I'm happy to promote their product because it's such a revolutionary changing device,
Right. And that's a real plus. If you happen to get some for free, basically, you would be promoting anyways because you're so excited about it. I'm just saying the name right now. Their product is called Plain Products. And the idea of getting rid of plastic is just very strong in our whole, I don't know what you want to call it, teaching or what we are getting excited about. Yes. So, yeah, that's definitely one of those plus situation you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're familiar with Precious Plastics.
I'm not sure. Tell me more.
Okay, Precious Plastics is a wonderful open source nonprofit organization that is teaching people for free how to make a recycling center for all plastics in your garage or at home and turn that into a profiting business. Their model works. I've used it myself. It's great. And it's one of the teachings that I pass on in my teachings on how to make a home-based business at home out of nothing, because it's taking trash and turning it into profit.
That's excellent to know. And I think that's somebody I'm going to try to interview next. Thank you.
Yes. Always happy to pass on another great organization like yours or somebody else that's trying to save the world, I wish I could tell you a great water device company, because I'm very into the generating water out of the air and creating your own water at home. It's one of the saving things that's going to save mankind. But yet at this time, there is no commercial company that I'll promote. I would rather you learn how to make it yourself, because they're just ripping people off. You can make the device at home for under $200, maybe $300, and they're selling them for in at least $1,000.
Yeah.
Foolish.
And that's definitely one of the things I want to learn from you next. Right now, we're still, or I would say I am, since the projects are mostly what I'm doing, I'm a little bit overwhelmed, but I'm already having on my hands. So for my own personal sustainability, I'm trying really hard not to start another project. But the water is on my next list because it's so important in a almost desert, in a semi-desert.
I always like to say this comment. Even if you're not living here in Flint, Michigan, and your water is clean that it's being sent to you in the city and healthy and good, you're still paying for that delivery, okay? Water is key to life. We must have water to stay alive. If we don't have water, we die. So if you're paying someone for your water, you're paying them to be alive. That is the definition of a financial slave. You're paying someone to be alive. So we, especially here in America, if not the whole world, need to take back our water rights and our water safety to our own hands, and each be our own individual monitor who's controlling the water creation at their own level. In my opinion, there shouldn't be a city supply of water. It should be each individual person is educated in the school system on how they create water and what the devices are that do it, and how to repair them, and how to make water at home. It's really simple. When you realize that only I can't give you the exact number off the top of my head. I'd have to look at my textbooks, but something like 1% of the usable water on the surface is all we have. Of all the water that's out there, there's only like 1% of it that is actually drinkable, potable water. Most of it exists in the atmosphere.
Right, and it's frozen and all of that. And the 1% we're messing up heavily with agricultural pesticides, herbicide runoff, and whatever plastics in the water. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and it's definitely high on my list. And you probably hear from me going, "Carl, help me," because our water is not great. It's coming from all over the place. It has fluoride in it, all kinds of stuff. So I do rainwater harvesting. I have several tanks, not as much capacity as I like. And I do water harvesting in the soil by catching all the rainwater I can. But I love to learn more about actually creating water out of the air. Because if we have an earthquake down here and we live in earthquake country, we could be with no water in no time. So,
exactly.
yeah.
And the water device I show people how to make runs off of solar so that you don't have to worry if your power goes off too. You can still create your water.
Yeah, it's on my list. That's next. You're going to hear from me. God, help me, I'm stuck.
It's not a problem. The concept is quite easy. All you have to do is you take a dehumidifier, and the coils in the dehumidifier, I'll try to keep this really short, can get mold on them. So you have to spray a protective coating over them. That's the only internal workings you have to mess with, is spray a little spray down. But then you attach at the beginning where the air comes into that dehumidifier, you attach an air purifier. And at the bottom where the water collects, you attach a water purifier. And boom, you're done. You have just created a water generation unit that will create you drinkable purified water.
Wow. Do you have a video on that?
I don't yet, because the last time we did it, we weren't sure it was going to work. And then we left that device there for another family when we left that area. And we're going to build a new one here, and we're going to video it now that we know it actually works and that it's usable and it's something we want to promote.
Excellent. So I'm definitely going to watch that video, and then when you have it, I'm going to add it to the show notes so people can find it. Because you say, oh, it's really easy, but...
Yeah, I meant that I could explain it really easy. It's not an easy process to do. There's tools and stuff that but anybody who follows anything on Pinterest and tries a DIY at home can probably do this too. It's not that hard once you've seen the pictures and got the steps laid out in front of you.
Good. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And then it's going to be definitely on the project list. Very up on the list because, water it's a big topic where you are, obviously. And I think the nation really knows about it. And it brings home so much that we just can't trust to consume whatever comes into our house, to take that self-responsibility for our water, for our food, for our life.
For your power, your water, your food, your profit as well. Bringing those four things into your life and taking back control of those has lessened my stress level, has made me so much more happier. I get to wake up in the morning, and instead of shipping my kids off to somebody else to educate them, I get to educate them myself. I get to make sure that their education is good. And they do homeschooling, they do online schooling, and then we do our own private schooling with them. So I make sure that even my 2-year-old can walk around my garden and tell you what's a radish, what's a sweet potato, what leaf you can eat, which leaves you can't.
Right.
And we want to make sure that the next generation gets those skills, because for the last 2 generations, we've kind of been forgetting them.
My kids were homeschooled as well. And to me, I followed the John Holt idea that kids are natural learners and you don't have to teach children. You just have to provide learning opportunities. And as your kids come along, of course, they learn what's edible and what's not. Not to say that you never explain things. Obviously, there is teaching involved, but, in the school sense of teaching, it's like, today we have this subject, and even so you're not interested at all, that's what you're going to learn today. It's so different from, here we are doing this project. We are building this dehumidifier. And I don't know, you have a 2-year-old, and how old are your other children?
I have a 2-year-old and I have a 6-year-old currently. I did raise 3 foster children who are out of the home now and on their own. But my own children are a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old.
And I bet you the 6-year-old, now after you're done building the dehumidifier, they might be able to explain it to me, just because they're around you doing all those projects and absorbing that.
One of the biggest problems with people not being free is just not exposure to the concept that they can be. You know what I mean? We believe that we have to follow these set goals in life, get a loan for a car, get a loan for a house, instead of building your own home or doing it in different methods. And there's so many other ways to accomplish the same goals that make the American dream, of home ownership. I'm happy with my job, or I own my own business and I have time to spend with my family. There are other paths to that than the traditional one we've all been stuck with of let's go to college, let's get deep in debt, and let's buy everything now on loans. And then hopefully before we die, we pay it off so our kids aren't left as the next financial slave.
Right. Yeah, Janice and I just got together and we talked about that a lot, that if you can't think it, if you can't envision it, you can't do it. And so opening the mind to the possibilities is a very first step to taking action.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk to somebody first here and tell them, when they first hear me talking, they go, oh yeah, I can show you how you can eliminate all your monthly bills. They immediately blow it off as a fantasy because we're so trained that this is impossible. We have to pay these monthly bills. It's just part of life. We accept it. And it's not. It doesn't have to be that way. There is alternatives. And one of the things I want to make sure that I always say is that we're not suggesting go out and live the Amish lifestyle in the middle of the farm with no electronics and no power and no air conditioning and all these things. No, we talk about eliminating your monthly bills and still living with the same level of modern convenience and comfort you always have. There are one thing that I suggest people giving up, and that's the microwave. Other than that, pretty much everything else in my house is the same as anybody else's house.
Yeah, I never was a friend of the microwave. That from the very beginning, I felt uneasy. And I actually have one in the house. I need to eliminate it because from what I understand, even having them plugged in, they pull a lot of energy.
Yes.
But right now, that's my fan and my stove light as well. So I'm using it as a storage cabinet. But I want to find a way to, find a replacement hood so I can just have the light and the hood and not the microwave. So, Carl, we have been talking for an hour already, and I definitely want to ask you if I can call you again in a couple of months or so and continue this conversation. But before we end today, is there some you would really like to address?
Yeah, I would say the one thing I'd like to address most of all is that we are working on currently an online school. It's not up and running, but this will be allowing people to see the textbooks that we teach from and allow them to see our videos and take our courses for free because we believe that if you have the solution to a problem and you're trying to charge for that solution, you're part of the problem, not the solution. So everything we do will be for free, and we're happy to share it with anybody. And I guess that's the main thing. And I always end with gather with members around your community and grow as much food as you can because food freedom is the first step to true freedom.
So true. So true. Kyle, thank you so much. I'm definitely going to link to all your resources you already have put out there. And I'm really looking forward to when you're online, what are you going to call it? Online university, online classes?
So far, right now, it's the Manabu Self-Sufficiency School.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be a student because I still have bills and I like to eliminate them for sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Just as a progress note real quick when we end here, the property we are at now, we started our bill reductions 3 months ago and we were paying $975 in bills. We are down to $625 in bills.
That's great.
All right. So each month we've lowered more than $100 in bills.
Are you going to have like a write-up somewhere what those bills consisted of and how you were able to lower them? Is that going to be part of your self-sufficiency school?
Sure is.
Excellent. Yeah, I wanted to thank you so much that you showed up in the group and that you're sharing so freely all your tips. I'm in awe what you do. Yeah, you have a fan. Thank you so much.
And thank you for spreading such great messages. Everything you post and everything you put out on these podcasts, I listen to because they are wonderful tips that even I need to learn.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right. You are going to be back soon.
All right. I will.
See what I mean? Carl is amazing, right? And now go and check him out on YouTube and on his blog and all the different places he's showing up. So much to learn. I just really, really encourage you to get bill free. I think that's one of my plans. Okay, speaking of bill free, one way you can support us is on Patreon. And It's called patreon.com, and then you look for Sustainable Living Podcast. And we do have a button on our website now. You can just click and you can give us $1 a month, which would really help with production costs and all of that. Yeah, we like to podcast and we like to build community, and we would love to see such a community is in support. Also, last podcast, we talked about how we had asked you for your email, and many of you graciously gave it to us, and we did nothing. Well, we're very, very close to sending out our first email. Yeah, I know it's not so difficult, but there is this hurdle of tech and just doing it. So I'm promising to do it this week. An email is going out. So if you did give us your email address, please check. And it would be coming from the Sustainable Living Podcast. And I probably address it as Sustainable Living Podcast, Janice and Marianne. So you know exactly where it is. And we didn't ask for any names, so we can't address you by your name. We were going to name you all the Sustainable Living Geeks. So let me know what you think about that. Is that a name you can wear proudly, or is it a name you go, no, I'm not a geek? Help us find a better name if you don't like that one. So right now it's Sustainable Living Geeks. Look for an email. I sent one to myself, and it was I think it was in my spam. I have Gmail. It could also have been in the promotion folders. I don't remember now, but check for it. Latest by this weekend, I should have it going out. Thank you so much for listening. We totally appreciate you. Wishing you a wonderful day.